Thank you. Thank you. We are, you can keep the light. So Nicole and I are lucky enough to make our living doing something that we absolutely love, which is nature photography. And we get to travel around the world and share it with a bunch of other people, which is really awesome. And I've been taking pictures for 40 years, and we've been doing this business for about 20 years now. And over the course of those 20 years, we've been to, I think, 50 or 60 different countries. So for today, what I've done is I've picked out 8 or 10 of our favorite countries, and I've just put together some images from there, and that's what we're going to share with you. So, and we're on the road a lot. We travel as much as 300 days a year, so Mom doesn't get to see us a whole lot. So we're going to start off, this is actually the next destination we're going to. One of our favorite trips is up to Alaska, to Lake Clark National Park, and we go up there to photograph the bears. And this is a very special place. It's one of the least visited national parks in the national park system. And the bears hibernate up in the mountains. And in the spring, the bears come down to this area to fatten up and get ready to spend their season. And they come down to eat the sedge grasses. And they're eating the sedge grasses, and while they're eating the sedge grasses, they're waiting for the tide to go out. And when the tide goes out, they go out onto the tidal flats, and they dig razor clams. Very protein-rich, protein-packed little bundles of energy. And, you know, just a tiny little clam, but they can dig, those things are 3 feet down in the ground. They'll dig them up, and they can crack them open and get the meat out of them. And this is how they fatten up after their hibernation. And the first bears to come down are the females without cubs, that don't have cubs yet. And then after that, the males come down. The males can be kind of intimidating. So, and the males come down, and they come down to fatten up, but they also come down to mate with the females that don't have cubs. And then once they've mated with all the females that are down there, they go back up into the mountains and establish their territory. And that's when the fun starts, because once the males come out, once the males leave, the females with spring cubs come down. And we time it for when the spring cubs first get down there. This was a few years ago, we were actually the very first human beings that these cubs had probably ever seen. So that was pretty special. So the mothers spend the summer teaching their little babies how to be bears. And we get to enjoy it. And the fun thing about this part is we're actually walking on the ground with the bears, and they're very acclimated. They've seen a lot of people, so they're used to seeing people. So the next place we're going to go is one of our favorite places, and it's Borneo. In Borneo, I always tell people Borneo is the home of unusual creatures, and this is one of the more unusual. This thing is called a tarsier, and it's one of the smallest primates in the world. It's about 4.5, 5 inches tall, and it's the only primate that is completely carnivorous. It eats insects and lizards and tiny little things. But he's like a grasshopper. This is all back leg here. So he's 4.5, 5 inches tall, but he's like a grasshopper. He can jump 20 feet. Crazy little things, completely nocturnal. Very cool. And this is a flying frog. So these frogs, they live up in the canopy. And one of the things that's unique to Borneo is the jungle is very tall. And these guys live up in the canopy, and there's very little trees. It's just very little limbs coming off the tree trunk. So it's a tree trunk going up 30, 40 feet, and then a canopy. So there's no way for animals to get from one tree to another tree unless they're up in the canopy. So a lot of the animals there glide. And that's what this frog does. He glides. When he comes down, they come down to the ponds to mate in the spring. And he'll spread his little feet out, and you can see there's big flaps of skin there. And he just like little wings, and he soars down to the pond. Very unusual. Another unusual animal. I didn't even know. I was out walking one night, and I came across this thing. I had no idea what it was. Of course, I took a picture of it, but I had no idea what it was. It's a colugo, which is a flying lemur, like a flying squirrel, but it's a lemur, and you can see the flaps of skin between his forelegs and his hind legs, and he'll get as big as a dinner napkin, and just again he glides from trunk to trunk in the forest canopy. Really crazy animal. Oh, and I didn't mention, if you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or interrupt me. It's pretty easy going. Yeah?
How long do you have to sit around and wait for that guy to smile for you?
A lot. I need to figure out how to get paid by the hour. So this is a unique animal from Borneo. These are little forest ants, and those are, you guys have probably heard about the lantern bug infestation. It's an invasive animal that's coming over here. Well, those little green things up there, those are the lantern bugs. And they eat the sap, they drink the sap from underneath the tree bark, but they're pretty defenseless. So when they drink the sap, they exude a little drop of honey out of their rear end. And you can see that one ant is feeding on that drop of honey. And they have a symbiotic relationship where the ants will defend and protect the lantern bugs and their eggs in exchange for this sugary treat. Kind of a cool thing to see. That's a proboscis monkey. Very, very endangered. There's just a few thousand of these left on Earth. Really unique animal.
Question.
Yep.
How do you get so close without scaring them away?
Well, it's time, and I have big lenses. We have big lenses, and we go to places where they're used to seeing people, like the bears. This is a lodge that's been around for 20 or 30 years, and they've been having ecotourism forever, so that the bears are used to seeing people and will allow you to get a little closer. But a lot of times we work in blinds and all kinds of little tricks like that. So, but the real...
Mask on like that?
I'm sorry?
You put your mask on like that?
Actually, sometimes when we're photographing primates, we do put on masks because our diseases are very transmittable to them. So the real star of Borneo, the reason we go there is, of course, the orangutan. And we go to Malaysian Borneo. This is a male. And then here's a female with a baby. So mother orangutans other than humans, they spend the most time with their babies. They spend up to 10 years caring for the babies. It takes a long time to learn how to be an orangutan. So, and then down to Costa Rica, which is the place that we've been leading photo tours for the longest. We've been doing this over 20 years. This, of course, is the resplendent quetzal, one of the most beautiful birds in the world. Back in the day, the Mayans actually worshipped this bird as a god. Pretty impressive bird. And surprisingly, they nest in cavities. So like a woodpecker, they nest in a tree cavity, and you can tell when there's a quetzal in the nest because you'll see the male's tail feathers sticking out of the hole, because he can't get all of his tails and everything into the hole. These are leafcutter ants. And the leafcutter ants go up in the trees and they cut a little piece of leaf and then they carry it back down to their nest. And most people think that the leafcutter ants actually eat the leaves. But the fact is the leafcutter ants actually grow a fungus on the leaves, and they use the leaves to feed the fungus, and they eat the fungus. But funny story, so this was from my first trip to Costa Rica, and I was super excited because I had always wanted to photograph leafcutter ants. And I was in the jungle, and I was laying down on the ground, right down ground level with the ants, photographing them. And this Swiss couple came out of the jungle, and they kind of looked at me weird, like, what the heck is he doing? And they stepped over me and went down to the lodge. And I was at dinner, and they came up to me, and they asked what I was doing in the jungle. And I said, I was photographing leafcutter ants. I was super excited because it was the first time I'd ever seen them. And they said, I wish I'd known. We were just back in the jungle, and there were leafcutter ants, and there were trails of them all going through the jungle. And every single one of them was carrying a little flower. So there were these purple trails going through I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Would have been a much better picture. And then, of course, we've got the sloth, three-toed and two-toed sloths. This is a three-toed sloth. So sloths, people are super excited to see sloths when we're in Costa Rica, but most often they're just balls of fur up in a tree, up in a ball. It's very unusual for a sloth to be moving around during the day. But once a week, they come out of their trees to go down and go to the bathroom. So we got this guy on a pee-pee break. So that worked out pretty good. But one of the things I love about Costa Rica is everything's beautiful. This, believe it or not, this is a vulture. So this is called a king vulture. So even in Costa Rica, even the vultures are beautiful. Spectacular animal. They're not really pretty when they're at the dining room table, though. They're all covered.
What is that thing around the back of, behind his beak?
It's just like a wattle, I guess you'd call it. Yeah, it's just part of their ornamentation. And then these are poison dart frogs. These are 2 strawberry poison dart frogs. These guys are about the size of your thumbnail. Just tiny little things. And they are on the prettiest, the coolest vine I've ever seen in my life. It's called the monkey vine. And this is an interesting little owl. This is a pygmy owl. What's it called? Central American pygmy owl. So this guy's tiny. He can fit in a teacup. And one of the things I really love about this picture is this ant. You guys see the ant right there? So that gives you an idea. It gives you a sense of scale, just how tiny that owl is. Just really cool little animals. And then these are red-eyed tree frogs. They're making more red-eyed tree frogs. So it's interesting, they don't lay their eggs. Most amphibians will lay their eggs in the water because the tadpoles need water to survive. But in Costa Rica, there's a lot of things in the water that would eat the eggs. So what the red-eyed tree frog does is they lay their eggs on vegetation over the water. And then when the tadpoles develop, they wiggle free and they drop down into the water and they start their life as tadpoles. So things find a way. And this is a bat. Most people don't realize that the bats, a lot of bats are nectar feeders. Bats pollinate a lot of flowers. If you like a margarita, the agave plant, which tequila is made from, is usually pollinated by a bat. So they don't just get stuck in your hair, they're actually very useful. So next we're going to move over to Kenya. Nicole and I's favorite place, if we could just travel anywhere. Would you agree, is Africa? Yeah, we really love Africa. Last year we made 6 different trips to Africa to visit 9 different countries. So we really love Africa. And this is a mother cheetah with her 2 cubs. And those 2 cubs are probably about 4 or 5 months from getting kicked out and having to go out on their own. So she's teaching them how to hunt. It's interesting, when cheetahs leave their mother, oftentimes they will form a coalition and the cubs will stay together and hunt together because they're a lot better if there's 2 or 3 of them to hunt. And in Kenya, there was a very famous coalition of 5 brothers that hunted, and they stayed together for like 4 or 5 years. And they could bring down wildebeest and all kinds of things that cheetahs would never ever try.
How far away are we taking those pictures?
So
How
that's
fast can you run?
probably not as fast as a cheetah, but we're in safari vehicles. So and the animals you're used to seeing in the safari vehicles. And again, we've got big long lenses. So, but we're probably 100 yards away. And then the birds in Africa are pretty cool too. This is an African jacana. And you can get an idea of his feet. So they walk on the lily pads and they hunt. He's not stopping to smell the flowers. He's seeing if there's an insect in there. So, and he's about the size of half a chicken. Small little bird. This is another super cool bird from Africa. This is called the secretary bird. And they hunt on the savannah, and they're about 3 feet tall, about this big, and they got these big giant feet, and they hunt snakes and voles and mice and scorpions, and they just, all day long, they just walk back and forth along the savannah. When they find something, they stop it to death, and then they eat it. And they roost up in the trees, and then at sunrise, they preen, get ready, and then they go down, and they probably walk 10 miles a day in search of food. This is one of the more rare cats that we see in Africa. This is called a serval. And he's about the size of a bobcat. But in Africa, especially in the savanna, there's not a lot of trees, not a lot of vertical things. A lot of it is big giant grass plains. So whenever there's something vertical, like a tree trunk or something, everything that goes by leaves a scent and marks it and says, hey, I was here. So he's actually checking a signpost to see who else is in the area. So this is Lake Baringo in Kenya. Just an amazing gathering of flamingos. One time we were here and there were 3 million flamingos on this lake. The lake was literally pink. We need to figure out some way to get in a helicopter to get above it because it would be really cool from the air.
How can they get anything to eat?
And then this is a fish eagle, very much like our bald eagle, and he's going in. You can see that the fish he's going in to grab. Very dramatic. And he's about the same size as our American bald eagle. So the mother lioness, she moves her cubs. They don't stay in the same, like they're born in one den and they'll stay in there for a few weeks and then they'll get infested with fleas or something, or they get too much scent around and then she'll move them. So the cubs will move through a series of 3 or 4 dens over the course before they actually join the pride. Before they actually join the pride. So she walks them from place to place. And of course, these little legs, they get tired if they're going more than half a mile or so. So mom will often pick one up and carry it. So I find Africa is very good for black and white. I like to been playing more with some black and whites. This is at a park called Amboseli. And the one in front is the matriarch, the leader of the herd. And she's leading them across a dry riverbed on the way to the marshes to feed.
Is there a male within that group?
I'm sure some of those are male. This guy right back here, this looks like it might be a male. This one right here. And some of the younger ones are probably males. This guy in the back, the very back one, he's definitely a male. So you can tell, if you can't see the equipment, you can tell the males have a more sloped forehead, where the female has a ledge, it comes up and turns. The male, you see, he's got that very rounded forehead.
What do elephants eat?
Elephants eat grass. They eat like a few 100 pounds of grass and leaves and things every day. So they eat all the time. That's all they're just constantly eating. So this is a chubby rhino, or a chubby unicorn. So Nicole showed me, so this is a sanctuary that we visit there called Solio. It's a wonderful rhino sanctuary, and as everyone I'm sure is aware, rhinos are very endangered and they've been persecuted for their horns. And she showed me, and this sanctuary does wonderful. How many? There's like 700 rhinos on this sanctuary. And Nicole showed me a picture, and a rhino with a horn like that. And I'm like, well, that's not real. That's, surely that's, but there's dozens of rhinos with horns like this there. It's a wonderful place. They do really good work with the rhinos. So back to North America, to our friends in the north. This is an Atlantic puffin. We go to Newfoundland to photograph the puffins. And they're beautiful little birds, very comical. We go there during nesting season because they're paired up. But they live on these beautiful cliffs. Newfoundland, if you've never been, it's just a beautiful country. Very nice people, beautiful coastlines. And the puffins, people don't know it, but puffins actually live in a burrow down in the ground. They dig down a burrow and they dig down into these cliff sides so the fox and the other things can't get to their chicks. And these burrows can be 3 or 4 feet deep, and they've got all kinds of chambers, and they're always constantly bringing interesting things back to the burrows where they live. And one of the burrows I found out recently is a bathroom. And puffins eat a lot of fish. So the bathroom is probably fairly offensive. And oftentimes you'll see them bringing back flowers. And I'm thinking it's maybe air freshener for the bathroom. But I haven't talked to her So another place that we visit up in Newfoundland is a place, the name of this place, believe it or not, is called Bird Rock. Very original. But there are 70,000 pairs of northern gannets that nest on this rock. We call that a target-rich environment. So, and they're just beautiful seabirds. It's often windy and they'll be hovering in the wind. And they're always carrying seaweed back to the nest because they constantly build the nest. And that dark background is just a shaded part of the cliff where when I expose for the bird, the background goes completely black, which I like that. It's kind of dramatic. And then the other thing that we really like to photograph up in Newfoundland are foxes. We got beautiful red foxes. And then the environment, it's like a tundra. So where they hang out is really beautiful too. So it makes for some really good. And we can usually find a fox den or two. Mother water kits. So we spent a few days with this guy, and he got a little comfortable. And he decided he wanted. I don't know if he liked Nikon. I'm not really sure what the message he was sending there.
Tell us a little bit about your equipment, the size of your lenses and whatever.
Well, so that's the biggest lens that we shoot with. That's a 600 millimeters. So that's probably equivalent to a pair of 10 by 42 binoculars. So it pulls things in pretty close. But you know, it's a big giant lens. It's this big. But like you see the top of that flag there, I need to be about that close with that lens to get a full frame picture of a northern cardinal. So if people see a thing like this and they think you're on the moon, but you still gotta have some field craft to get close. And the equipment is absolutely the best you can get, but it still takes a lot of field craft and a lot of skill and to get close to these animals, it takes a lot of time. And that's the fun part of it. That's the challenging part. That's the part that I enjoy is solving the puzzle of how am I going to get close to this animal, how am I going to get myself in a situation to make the pictures I want to make. And that's part of the fun of it. Yep.
How heavy is the lens?
Nicole carries it. It's the whole thing, the lens and the tripod and everything is probably 20 pounds. But that's in the morning. In the afternoon, it's about 70 pounds. So, one of our favorite places to go in the U.S. is Yellowstone. And I've been to Yellowstone probably 100 times. And we've just started going to Yellowstone in the winter. And it's really a wonderful time. It's a lot harder to do, but the pictures you can make are really amazing. It's all about stoicism and survival, and you can tell a lot of cool stories with the winter.
What is that?
That's a buffalo, and he's so covered. He looks like a snowman, doesn't he?
Gosh.
Yeah. So their fur is so insulated that the snow doesn't even melt. So he's looking right at us. So the goal is to always get there before they shake, because once they shake, it's over. So it gets so cold there, it gets to be 40 below zero without the wind chill. So it gets so cold that you can actually see the call of a raven. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. This was not planned, but this just reminded me of a story. So I had this, when I worked at a real job, we had this girl that worked in the office, and she was gullible. She would believe anything. So me and this other sales guy, we played this game, who could get her to believe the most crazy thing. So I told this girl that my dad was a merchant marine, and he used to work up in the Arctic. And I said, you know how it gets cold and you can see your breath? I said, that's because it's so cold that the water vapor condenses as it comes out of here. I said, well, when my father was up in the Arctic, it would get so cold that the sound waves would freeze when you talk. So you would have a conversation and no one could hear anything because the sound waves were frozen. She's like, oh my God, that's incredible. I said, no. The weird part was when you got down to where it was warm, all the conversations would defrost. A lot of fun. I think I'm going to put that into the rotation, this program. So another really cool animal in Yellowstone is the ermine. So this is a weasel. He's about 7 or 8 inches long. And in the winter, they turn completely white. Super hard to photograph because, like, if he's carrying a vole, but if he doesn't have that vole, he's a white animal on snow with a black tail and a black eye. Super hard to photograph. You can't even hardly see him. I tell people it's like trying to photograph a ping pong ball in a blizzard with a black dot. So, but he's carrying they're fierce little guys. They will, so this ermine is about this big, and they will take down a snowshoe hare, which is about this big. So they're pretty fierce little guys. So another great thing that we still like to photograph red foxes in winter in Yellowstone, and so they eat mice and voles and things like that. Well, during the winter, all of these little creatures are underneath the snow. And so they hunt them all with their ears. So he can hear the mouse scurrying underneath the snow. So if you go up and you see a fox and he's cocking his head like this and he gets back on his haunches, you got to get ready because he's going to do this. So, and he will punch through 18 inches of snow and pin that mouse. He knows exactly where it is, and he'll pin that mouse underneath the snow and reach down. And we watched him get, I don't know, 8 or 10 mice in 20 minutes. Very efficient little dudes. Super fun. And then if we're lucky, sometimes we see river otters. Not too often. This is a pretty special treat. We've been there probably 15 times. We've always really got good river otters a couple times. This is another member of the weasel family that we very rarely see. This is a pine marten, and he's maybe 20 inches long, and they eat squirrels and snowshoe hares. Everything in the weasel family is pretty tough. And if we get really, really, really lucky, sometimes we'd see things like this. So this was a really special day up in Fountain Flats, and we had the Wapiti pack cut out the bison actually made it back to the herd, but we got some really exciting pictures. And it's funny, this is after the hunt, so once they have the bison separated, they have a chance, but once the bison gets back to the herd, they're like, there's no chance at all. This is the end of the hunt. I'm like, okay, they won this round. So we also get to go, one of our favorite cats to photograph are the tigers in India. Obviously very beautiful cats. Tigers are actually, of all the cats, I would say tigers are the most difficult to photograph, because tigers are cats of the jungle, and they're in the forest and the jungle all the time, so it's really hard to get them out in a place where you can actually see them. But when you do, they're pretty darn spectacular. This is a young male trying to give me the evil eye. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, but I took the picture still. So this next picture, this was in a park called Ranthambore, which is one of the famous tiger parks in India. And this is a female, and she's got 3 grown cubs, and she's not actually snarling at us. There's some samba deer, there's an island, there's just a little channel here she's crossing, and there's samba deer on the island over there. She was trying to get across to the samba deer, but it's filled with alligators, or crocodiles. So she's snarling at the crocodiles and telling her kids to stay back until she clears the path. And then India has some of the coolest birds. So these birds they're about the size of a blue jay. They're called laughing thrushes. Really beautiful birds. They have woodpeckers too, very cool woodpeckers. So one time when we were in India doing the tigers, and our guide showed us a picture of this bird. Isn't that something? That's called a manal. And it's about the size of a pheasant. I'd say it's like a cross between a pheasant and a hummingbird. So, but they're up on the Tibetan plateau up at like 14,000 feet. And it's interesting because they're kind of oblivious, but they're really jumpy. So they scratch and they feed from things on the ground. And as long as they have their head down, you can walk and you can move. But as soon as they put their head up, you got to be absolutely frozen. So we found a couple of these birds, And Kushbu was our guide, and Nicole and me were trying to stalk up on these birds, and I'm in the front, and they all have their hand on each other's back, and we take a couple steps, and then he looks up, and we freeze. And we take a couple steps, and we freeze. And it was like playing a game of red light, green light for like an hour. He got just close enough to where we could almost, and I was in the front, and we got just to where we were close, and crunch, I stepped on a plastic bottle. And of course he looked up, and I'm like, oh no, I can't lift my foot up. It's gonna make a bunch of noise again, so we just had to shoot it from there. But it was a fun adventure. So in addition to tigers, Indy has a lot of leopards, beautiful leopards. And one of the cool things about the leopards in India is their eyes are very blue-green, where the eyes of leopards in Africa tend to be more yellow-green, but they are very penetrating eyes. And longer tails, almost like a snow leopard, maybe. So this is my absolute favorite picture ever of a tiger. And this was on our last day, is that 2 years ago? And this is a female, and we spent like 3 hours with this cat. And we were sitting on the road, one of the pathways getting out there. We're in safari vehicles. And she had taken down a baby spotted deer. She was eating this deer. And there were no pictures. Like there was a bunch of grass, and you couldn't even see her. You just, every once in a while, you'd see her flip or something. And we sat there for hours. And then just the sun is just going down, and it's getting to the point where we can't take any pictures. And she decides to get up. And whenever a cat eats that much meat, the first thing they do is they go to water and they drink. So we knew she was going to go to some water. So we went over to this lake and we waited for her. And she's walking along the edge of this lake. And it is almost pitch black. You know, we're in the forest, there's very little light. And she's walking along, and the whole thing is just all shaded. And there was one spotlight of light, like this God beam coming down. And she walked and she looked, and she stopped right there and got a drink. So it's better to be lucky than it is to be good. So I would say, Nicole's favorite place in the world to photograph is Madagascar. Is that true? Yeah, she loves Madagascar. And Madagascar is super cool. So these are ring-tailed lemurs. And lemurs, so monkeys are super cute, right? We all love monkeys, they're cute. But you know what, monkeys are mean. Right? There's very few monkeys that are very nice, but lemurs are super sweet and super gentle, and they're just kind of cute little creatures. And I think that's what Nicole likes. But so the ring-tailed lemurs, this is how they sleep because it's cold, right? So, but it's lemur cold. It's like 60. Like for you and me, it would be maybe a jacket, but not on this. So, but they huddle together like this to stay warm.
What are they sleeping on?
They're sleeping on the ground. So sometimes they'll be on a tree limb up off the ground, but they're sitting on the ground right there. And they're just trying to stay warm.
The guy in the front looks like he's wearing pajamas.
Yeah, he pulled he's the head guy, he pulled all the tails around him. There's always one, right? And then Madagascar is also home to the baobab tree, which is probably one of the cooler trees. This is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Avenue of the Baobab, which is a kind of a famous place in Madagascar. And these trees are ancient. They're probably over 1,000 years old. And they look like they were planted upside down, right? It looks like the roots sticking out of the top.
That's true.
That's a giraffe-necked weevil, aptly named. And his eyes are on that little stalk. You can see his eye, right? Right there is his eye. So very unique creature. Again, his body's the size of your pinky fingernail. Very tiny little dude.
What size lens do you use for that?
So that would be a macro lens. So a macro lens is designed to take pictures of very small things. It allows
What
it's
size
called
do you use for that?
a 105 probably or a 200 macro. Yeah.
Now, when you take pictures of all these things, you have to go home and research them to find out what they are.
Yeah. If I send them to my agent who markets my pictures for me, I have to find the scientific name and yeah, that's the job part of it. This is the fun part of it. Yeah.
You go mostly with guys?
Oftentimes, yeah, more time, yeah. Naturalists and drivers, and yeah.
This is what you've done all your life?
For the last 25 years, probably, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We get to do something we love with each other.
Oh, man.
It's perfect. So, and then of course, Madagascar is home to the chameleon. Well, that was a fun picture.
Is that his tongue?
That's his tongue, yep, and there's a little grasshopper just out. So it's neat, you can tell, so, excuse me, so Matt, the eyes on the chameleon, independent eyes, and they just go all wonky. But you can tell when he's getting ready to strike something, because both eyes go, and they just lock on.
His tail's around.
Yeah, you gotta have a good strong base to launch from. So, and here's a picture of a ring-tailed lemur showing off his tail. That backlighting really helps show off that tail. So, in one of the more rare lemurs that we see there are the indri, which is very cool. And we go to one special island that just has the indri. We visit that island specifically to see this very cool lemur. And one of the coolest things about the indri is they call. And they have a very haunting call. It reminds me of whales. It sounds like this. It gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. Yeah. Very neat animals. So now we're going down to Brazil. The place we go in Brazil, one of the places we go is the Pantanal. And the Pantanal is a very unique ecosystem. It's the world's largest wetland, and it's a temporary wetland. And during the rainy season, all of the Pantanal floods, and it's a wetland the size of Germany. So it's very flat, and it's very wet, right? When it's the rainy season. The size of Germany flooded, and you can't drive. There's one road that they have raised, and you can get down there, and everybody travels around it in boats. And then over the course of the year, it drains out. So, and these are capybara alongside the water and in the water. And then it's home to the blue hyacinth macaw, an endangered macaw. And this is one in their nest cavity. It's amazing the things that live inside of trees. Like you wouldn't picture that or a quetzal living in a tree digging on a hole. Very beautiful birds. And then it's also home to my very favorite toucan. This is called a toko toucan. And he's got that beautiful blue eye ring. You can always, I had a guy tell me one time, I'm like, how do you know when it's a toucan flying? He says, because it looks like it's carrying a banana because of their big long bill. So, and the other thing that we, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, are those true colors, or have you used some kind of enhancement to get?
No, those are the actual, this screen is a little bit dark, so they're a little more intense than they would normally be, because it's a little underexposed, but yeah, that's pretty accurate. Like it is super flashy and super colorful, yeah. So the other thing that we always want to see when we're down there are anteaters. This is a giant anteater. Super hard to see, they're very nocturnal. That thing's probably 10 feet long. Yeah, his tail stands this tall. Really cool animals. And one of the cool things about anteaters, at least the giant ones, is they carry their babies on their back, which is very neat. And one of the things that always amazes me, you have to really look when you're looking to see if there's babies, because you see this stripe that goes along her body. That stripe, and because of this fur, it's hard to really see it as well, but that stripe goes all the way, the baby lines up so her stripe matches her mother's stripe. So like if you're 50 feet away, you can't tell that there's a baby on the back because the stripe seems to go right through the baby. It's very, very good camouflage. And you know, no matter what size they are, they always line up to have that camouflage. Super cool animals. But the real reason we go down to, the big draw for us to go down to the Pantanal are the jaguars. So this is a big male, sizing me up. So, pretty cool. We had a mother and a baby one year. So this is the area that floods the size of Germany. So when we go down, it's not flooded anymore. As the water recedes, it goes down into all the rivers. And there's a series of rivers that run through the Pantanal, and all the water drains down to the rivers. And then we go by boat up and down the rivers looking for the jaguars and the birds and all the things that we want to photograph. But the beauty of that is once all the water recedes, all of the prey that lives in the water, the caimans, the capybara, all the water birds, all of those things, they all get concentrated along these rivers, right? So the jaguars all know that, and they hunt the riverbanks, and they walk up and down the riverbanks trying to find the capybara and the caiman, and so we get to see a lot of hunts. And that's the jaguar having a black caiman. Actually, it's a yellow caiman. So the jaguar has the strongest bite of any cat. It's got 3,000 pounds per square inch. So when they get a caiman, they just grab it by the back of the head and crush the skull, and the caiman's paralyzed. It's pretty quick and painless. And then he'll carry, that caiman weighs probably almost as much or probably a little bit more than that jaguar, and she'll carry it back to her cubs. So the most epic place we go is Antarctica. And this is an elephant seal portrait. Yeah, got that face that only a mother elephant seal. And then of course Antarctica is home to the penguins. This is, I think that's me. That's an Adelie penguin. And he's calling. A couple of Gen 2 penguins. So I think they look like they're having a disagreement. And he doesn't look like he's winning the argument. So probably the most epic place, one of the most epic places we've ever been is South Georgia Island. Giant king penguins in this beautiful, rugged landscape. Really a special place. This is South Georgia Island, down in the Antarctic Plains. So, yeah.
Find enough food to feed all those people.
Those penguins, actually, when they're here, they don't eat a whole lot. They have to go out to sea to eat. So this is kind of a different picture. This is a technique where it's called super slow shutter speed, dragging the shutter. So you see how that's water. He's standing in a river, and you see how the water's all smoky? That's because I left the shutter open, letting the light in for 6 seconds. And that long shutter speed blurs that water and makes it all smoky, and makes it look like that. But the tricky part is you got to get the king penguin to sit completely still for 6 seconds. So it takes a few pictures to get everybody to cooperate. But it's kind of cool when it works. So in a flock of king penguins, there's always one that stands out. That's the key. A lot of times you just got to find the one that becomes the focal point of the picture. This guy was kind of a ham. So people think penguins can't fly, but they can. So this is a Gen 2 penguin, and they porpoise like dolphins as they swim if they need to get someplace fast. And now back to Africa. In Africa is Tanzania. And this is a young male leopard that we spent probably 3-4 hours with this cat. We spent so long that at the end he's just like, okay, fine, just take my picture, I'll just sit here. And he sat here and gave us a really nice portrait session for like an hour. But
magnificent eyes.
yeah, I mean something. But see, remember the leopard in India? Remember how I said his eyes were kind of green-blue? And his eyes are yellow-green, yeah. So, but yeah, they're beautiful. Cat's eyes are just special.
Now,
Now, to get this picture, how many did you actually take?
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it.
But I want to hear.
No, well, so on a trip, let's say a trip to Africa, and I've been to Africa a lot of times, so I don't take as many, like our clients will take 50,000 pictures on a trip to Africa, on a 10-day trip to Africa. And I'll take 10,000, but I'm not taking, I'm taking the really special things because I've taken on the other stuff. So, but we had a client that came to Botswana with us, and he took 156,000 pictures in 10 days. He was a little heavy-handed, but yeah, and I, you take those thousands of pictures to get the few that you're going to, you have to shoot to get the good ones, especially if the action is fast and things are moving, and yeah. So those are the two male lions. And again, remember I was talking about the cheetahs that form a coalition? So if male lions are actually pretty lazy. The females do most of the work. Well, not like our society, but see, I'm getting a look over here. You see what I did there? So the females do most of the work. So the males, if a male has a pride, the females takes care of the pride. Well, if you're not lucky enough to have a pride, you got to have a buddy to help you hunt, right? So the males will oftentimes form very tight bonds. And again, there's a very famous coalitions of male lions and 4 or 5 male lions, which are really cool to see. But they're actually very affectionate. This is a very rare and seldom seen cat from Africa. This is called a caracal. It's called a caracal. C-A-R-C-A-L. Beautiful. You can barely see, he's got little ear tufts up there. It's very Egyptian looking, but a very elegant, and he's about the size of a bobcat. Super special. We've seen probably 3 or 4 caracals in all our trips to Africa. So this was a photograph from, this wasn't Tanzania, this was in Zimbabwe. And so I almost got us all killed trying to get this picture. So these elephants, in a lot of the national parks, national park proper, and then there's what's called a buffer zone around the park, where they will have some human habitation, and they'll have some villages and things like that. Well, sometimes the wildlife gets into these buffer zones and gets into trouble, and that's what happened here. This elephant herd had gotten into the village, and they were probably messing with crops and things like that, and the villagers chased them out. So we got up in the morning, and we were coming down, and there was a road run alongside the river, then the river, and then the other side of the river. And the elephants were being chased out, and they were running alongside the river. And this is the matriarch. She's at the very back, protecting the herd, making sure they're all getting out safely. And they were running, and it was kicking up all this dust. Well, the sun was coming up behind them, but there was a block of trees that was blocking the light from hitting the dust that was going to make all the color that we see here. So I knew we had to get to a spot where the sun could get to the dust and light it all up. And there was a break in the trees like a half a mile up, and I'm like, trying to get to the spot, and we got there just in time. Your car got there too, didn't you? And we got there just in time to get this picture. So, but sometimes it can be pretty hectic. So that's a cheetah. That took a long time. That was probably 40 trips to Africa before I got that picture. And it's not an easy picture by any stretch, but it is something that can be done. But everything's got to come together. You got to have the right light. It's got to come close enough. It's got to be, But pretty cool. And then this is my favorite picture from 2025. So and I can't tell you, that's just kind of luck. Right, but they look like they were sitting for a family portrait.
Yeah.
So the tough part about that picture is getting all the eyes, right? Because there's a lot of heads going in a lot of direction. And to get it where you can see, 19 and a half of their eyes.
Yeah, they're all looking at the
Yeah. So that's pretty lucky.
Is that a male and female or 2 females?
That's 2 females. And it's probably, you can see that it's probably 2 different letters. So you can see this cup here and this cup here is probably from one litter. And then everybody else looks to be about the same age. So there's probably 2 litters, and they're probably the mother of both those litters. So another black and white. So this was fun. So these guys, they're all scrunched together. This is a family, right? It's a mother and probably an aunt and one of their babies. But there was a cut in a riverbank, and there must have been some minerals in there, and they were all kind of getting close to try to get to these minerals, and they were eating the dirt, but they were eating the minerals, and that's why they're all bunched together like that. So here again, I took a lot of pictures to get this one, right? Because the head position and how they all line up is super important. So we call that, in the business, we call that spraying and praying. So there is some of that.
Composition is perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
And looks playful.
So, and then this is something new I'm playing with. So this is just a different perspective. So in Africa, you always have to work from safari vehicles, and that means you can't get down low. And one of the things that's powerful for me about this picture is this down low perspective. You got this beautiful sky, and you look like you're photographed it from your belly. Well, so what I did is I made a camera a monopod that would hold my camera upside down, and then I put that outside the vehicle and hold it right, like literally it's 2 inches off the ground to get me this different perspective. All right, and then the last place we're going to go today is the place that Nicole and I just recently got back from, and that is Patagonia. And this is a beautiful, one of their national parks down there. This is called Torres del Paine. And it's a beautiful, beautiful park. That's a guanaco in the front. And the guanaco is like a llama. A beautiful landscape. And those are, Torres del Paine is the towers. And those sweet spires back there, those are the towers. And that's the iconic landscape of Torres del Paine. And one of the reasons the main reason we go down to Torres del Paine is to photograph the pumas. Beautiful cats. And this is early in the morning. She looks like she's lit up by a spotlight. And the sun has just peeked over. This light lasted for like 10 seconds. Just enough light to light her up in the grass and leave everything else in the shadow. Makes her pop off the screen. So, but here again, these cats have been, this is like the BBC and National Geographic have been going down here making documentaries. If you see the Predators series, this was all photographed at Torres del Paine where the cats will allow people a little closer. So they're used to seeing people. And this is one of the cats that we spent a few days photographing, and she had a kill, and she's chasing off a caracara. It's just like a red-tailed hawk. It's just a small bird, but she doesn't want that bird getting one bite of her meat. So she's wasting all this energy to chase off a little bird. So there's a fairly iconic shot. That's with the towers behind. Yeah, it's a beautiful landscape. That's one of the best things about it. But the coolest thing about this year's trip to Patagonia was we had kittens. Not what you thought. So these guys are just like 2 or 3 months old. So we got to spend time with them. Watch them tumble around and play. And then of course we got some special moments with Mom. And I promised my mother that I would show you guys the other cool thing that happened in Patagonia this year. So me and my lovely bride.
Who took that picture?
Not me, a very talented photographer. All righty. That's all I got. Yeah, we have a question over here.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, so she asked, she said that I talked about clients. This was the pretty one in the last picture. So, she asked about the client. So other aspiring photographers out on what's called photo, 7 or 8 people, and we'll go to take them to some of our favorite places to photograph, and that's what funds all of this and makes our lives possible. So it's a very cool gig. Yeah, yeah, thank you. It is a very good job. I was, how much can you carry? So I was just telling this lady up here, woman up here, that when I retire, I'm work at a bank or something. All right, yeah, go ahead.
When did you start? How did this start?
It started, boy, like right out of high school, I started taking pictures. Yeah, I mean, I've always been passionate about the outdoors, and because I wanted to share the things that I saw with people. And then I thought, boy, all this gear is expensive. I got to figure out some way to pay for all this stuff. So, and then it just snowballed from that. But I did. And I have an agent who sells my things to books and magazines and calendars and, you know, things like that. And so.
I like to buy a calendar.
Yeah. We need to do some more calendars. Yeah. Yeah.
How might AI impact your work? In
So-
either a good way or a bad way?
Well, you know, AI is it's kind of a threat to what I do. So I mentioned that I have an agent who sells my things to books, magazines, and calendars. Well, you know, I don't think calendars or National Geographic, they're probably never going to use AI images, I don't think. But if you need a picture of a cardinal for your birdseed bag, you don't need a real photographer to make that. You can have AI make that. And so it definitely will impact sales and things like that.
I wondered if you could license some of your photographs because AI needs faces and sound and pictures, I think.
Well, that's the
Could be licensed for them to then.
well, that's the scary part is they don't license it. They just take it. They just take them. Yeah, yeah. Like I had somebody tell me that they put in to AI make a picture of a bird in the style of Steve Gettle, and it made a picture that looked like one of mine. So they scour the internet and they pull all that stuff in, and that's kind of the threat of it. Yeah.
You put on TV shows?
Do I put on TV shows? I don't know. YouTube. Yeah, everybody's got a YouTube channel now.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Uh-huh.
Is all your photography digital?
It is now. I started off in the days of slides. Yeah, so I started off taking pictures with slides, and then, of course, digital just got so much better. You know, I had to switch over. Yeah.
Are you frightened many times doing this?
Am I frightened?
Yeah.
Nicole gets hangry sometimes, but other than that, it's pretty safe. Yeah, no, you know, I can tell you some stories. Like I made the mistake of telling my mother a couple stories, and I'm not going to do that anymore. But it's pretty safe. Like we've got professionals around us, and you know, we don't push things, right? Because for me, I want to have a positive interaction with the animal. I don't want to. If the animal's upset, I've done something wrong. Right? So my goal, I always tell people I get my best pictures when I have to back up, right? When I've had the animal accept me to the point where I'm so close I need to back up to get the picture I want, right? That's the goal, is because, you know, I tell our clients all the time, you can jump out of the car and get a quick picture and have the animal run away, but you got one picture. If you get out of the car slowly and have the animal accept you into their world, you're gonna get 100 pictures, you're gonna get behaviors, you're gonna get all the really cool stuff. So that's really the key to it. Okay, all right, thank you very much, appreciate it.